Hi, this is Savio. I've been seeking answers to some of life's most perplexing questions my entire life. In 2014, I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, and ever since, I realized my calling existed outside of what I knew to be familiar. This podcast is home for survivors like myself and those who yearn to build resilience in their mindset and live their best life. In Season 3, the show includes a mix of coaching sessions followed by interviews with those from all walks of life who have been successful in the wellness, business, media, and travel industries. The intent is to show the human experience in its rawest form so that others may glean insight. Nothing is rehearsed. As a board-certified wellness coach, #1 best-selling author, and syndicated columnist, my job is to ask the deep questions of those trying to make sense of their place in this fractured world. I believe life speaks to us in different ways. Many of us listen, but don't know how or where to begin. As someone who has crossed the bridge between life and death, I say simply, begin where you are now and get busy living. If you like today's episode, I would appreciate it if you could share it. Be sure to tag me at The Human Resolve so I can reciprocate in kind. So without further ado, welcome to the Human Resolve podcast. Today's podcast guest is business owner and breast cancer survivor, Tina Marie Romero. As Tina states, if I just trust my intuition, that it will tell me what those boundaries are. My intuition will always tell me when my boundaries are being violated, and I should listen to it. I know what it is. Even though I'm telling you now that I don't know what it is, I always know when it happens, but I try to deny it. Tina, it's good to see you.
Good to see you. How
Excellent.
Are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. So what would you like coaching on?
All right. How about boundaries? You know, this past week, I just feel like, I've had some big issues this week, and I think it boils down to boundaries. That I think for the longest time now, I probably am not very self-aware of how people push beyond boundaries, and I just seem to allow it to happen. And I think I'm finally at the stage that I realize that, I think it has something to do with my own doing for allowing, for not having set clear boundaries for myself and knowing when those boundaries are, when somebody goes over the boundaries and I just let it happen. So, I think it's something that's on my mind lately, which would be good if you could give me some coaching on it.
Great. So what I'm hearing is the term boundaries and all that entails in terms of the people that you work with and people that you live with and things of that nature. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Great.
Yeah.
So what would be a really great, fantastic outcome for today?
I guess a fantastic outcome would for me to be clear on my boundaries and also to not apologize or feel bad when I have to do what I need to do when those boundaries are crossed. So I think just to be clear on that and to be clear on if I need to do something when those, it would be really helpful.
So for you to feel comfortable when you need to set those boundaries and how those boundaries land for you.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. So how does the idea of boundaries in your life, what's your experience with it?
I think that I think growing up, I never really knew, I felt I didn't have any boundaries because my parents were very laxed. I pretty much, I guess I could have tantrums, and whenever I want something, I have tantrums, and I think I always am able to get what I want. So I think that right from the start, it was difficult for me to understand that there are boundaries because I never had to, and so growing up, I guess it's something that I never really had. I didn't have them because, I didn't have them for myself because I never had to contend with those. And I'm just learning now that that's probably one of the main reasons that there's some things that, you know, I'm unhappy about. It's because when people cross boundaries with me, I don't do anything about it because I never knew what it meant. I never knew that there had to be boundaries. So yeah, it's just starting. It's interesting how it's just starting to come to light to me at this age in my life. But I guess it's better late than never.
Yeah. So, you know, you mentioned about throwing tantrums. Can you give me more context in that?
Well, when I was a child, I remember that whenever there was something that I didn't like, I was unhappy about, I was bad. I was bad. There was one time where I could still remember I moved a piano in the house because I was upset. I moved the piano and I threw everything to the floor, except that I remember we had this bowl of marble eggs and I knew they were expensive. So because I didn't want to break them, but I just wanted to still create an impression, that I put it on the floor just to make it look like I'm still creating a mess. But that's just it. Yeah, I felt that whenever I didn't get what I wanted or I was unhappy, I would throw tantrums. Whether it's in the house or outside, I didn't really care. I just wanted things the way that I felt it should be.
What did that little Tina, what did she actually want during those tantrums?
I'm not sure. I think that, well, of course, other than the obvious attention, right? Like, I think it's basically attention. And, I'm not sure if I wanted to be disciplined. Like, in other words, because I never felt disciplined. I'm not sure now if I made the tantrum because I wanted my parents to do something to wake me up. I'm actually unsure, but I think it's clearly attention. And yeah, maybe there was that, I felt that I probably just pushed my parents hard enough until I could get a response from them because I never really seemed to get a response. So I think it's more of like the more that I pushed, maybe I was secretly hoping that they'll do something to discipline me and stop me from, further destroying myself.
So what was their reaction when you held these tantrums?
Well, as far as I remember, they weren't very stern at me. It's almost like they were still. I never really felt that I was punished. I not felt, but I don't think I was ever punished. Like, they were pretty lenient with me. Like, in other words, instead of being stern with me, then they just let it be, and they were just tried to acquiesce to me. And I think that's why, and that's, now that I think about it, that's exactly why I don't do anything when somebody crosses the line with me, because that's my same experience as a child, that I could do whatever I want and I was never reprimanded for what I did.
Did you have any siblings?
Yes. An older sister and a younger brother.
What was their response like? How were they as children?
Well, my sister was the same way. She was very hard-headed. Like, she's very stubborn, very, very strong personality as well. The same thing as me. It's like I think both of us, when we want something, we have very strong opinions. We're very, opinionated, and we would just, we would really fight for what we felt we wanted.
Did your parents react to her the same way as you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Same as your brother?
Well, my brother is, the same thing. It's like he could do no wrong. He could do no wrong. He could steal money or do whatever, but no one could do wrong in our family.
If I was your child right now, like I was you, and you were the parents, and I did that, what would you want to say to me?
So if you did specifically what?
So, like, for example, you're your parents right now, and I'm you.
Uh-huh.
And I did the eggs on the floor, and I did the piano, and I did all that. What would you want to say to me?
I would definitely be stern. And, depending on the context, what made you upset. But, really make it clear that what you're doing is not the way I expected you to behave, and that it's not behavior that I would that I would tolerate. That you can't just do something like that because, I don't know, for whatever reason, but it's something that should not be tolerated in our household.
And what would be the response from you if you were still that child right now and they said that to you?
I would probably, and as I've said earlier, that might be what I was looking for. I think I was trying to look for authority that would tell me when to stop, when I needed to stop. And I think that I longed to have the authority, but because I never had it, I would probably listen to it and say, you know what, that's, now I finally know what I'm not supposed to do.
So Tina, how can you use some of those insights, the great wisdom that you discovered right now to help you move forward with this situation?
I guess especially for the work environment, that for me to, I think my realization this past, this recent period of my life is that people will always try to push as far as they can to do for their own purposes, whatever they need to do, and it's up to me to stop them, to put a stop on things that violates my own values or my own boundaries, and that it is my responsibility to do that, no one else, because people will always try to push as far as they can to see how far you would let them, and so and I think that it has affected me in all parts of my life, whether in personal and business, but most especially now in the business, which it can be really, it's hard when you have a business and you have employees and they feel that they can just do whatever and I've experienced that this past week. So that's why this has really been on the forefront for me, because I see it clearly how that has affected me, knowing that, I have to set those boundaries with my employees.
So if I was an employee pushing over the edge of what you're comfortable with, what would you say to me?
Well, and I just did that last week. That I think in the past I would always be very understanding and forgiving. I have a high level of tolerance. But I think since last week I've just started to, I can't, I would say to you that no, I don't know what is it that you're trying to push, but I would say that no, I can't do that. I think I'm starting to learn that there are certain things that I should be able to say no to if it's something that violates my own values.
And how do you feel like it would land with your employee?
I think that it would, depending, and I'm very diplomatic when I talk to people. So even I feel that, I think that it would land well to them, depending, although it might surprise them because that's not usually me, but I think that it would make them look at me in a different light, knowing that, okay, so finally, here's the authority that they the same way that I think I was yearning for before. I think they would feel the same way, that finally, here's the authority that I was hoping I was expecting to get from my boss or from my, I hope that's what I hope it would be.
If you could create, in the Christian and Catholic Bible, there's the 10 Commandments. What would be Tina's commandments to make sure that you're honoring yourself, but still creating that boundary?
I need to have 10 commandments too.
No, you could have as many as you want. No, it doesn't have to be 10.
What would we, so say the question again? What would be my own 10 commandments?
Yeah, we spoke about you and sort of this idea of boundaries, and then you're growing up and how you weren't really given vocally those boundaries, and you were maybe yearning for some discipline. So in a perfect world, if you was to create just a wish list of commandments or things that you feel still honor who you are, but still makes it very clear to other people that there's a certain level of boundary that you can't cross, what would those things be?
Okay. I guess we should narrow it down from a work perspective, right?
Okay.
We should put it in the business perspective. Then I guess I expect integrity, first of all, right? I always expect integrity. I expect professionalism. I expect diligence with your job. Like I need someone to always do their best. Things happen, but so long as I know you're doing your best, that's all I expect. I expect I always expect people to be, and especially my employees, I expect honesty. I expect and I expect goodness, being good to others, being good to others, to co-workers, and to our clients. I just expect goodness to others and to everyone else. Yeah.
And in your life, those things that you mentioned, are they being violated right now?
Okay, so integrity, in a little bit, but not by everybody. And that person who was violated, there was one who, and that's why she's no longer here as of last week. Yeah.
And what about the other ones, like professionalism and the other couple that you
I
mentioned?
think the other ones, the ones who's here with me right now, no, they're not violating it. But I think that's what made it clear, because then the one who's no longer here, she did violate those things. And I think so that's why last week I just felt that I've had it, and then I asked for her resignation right then and there.
So on the other side, right, we talked about your work. What about your personal life in terms of the friends and family members that you keep? Are they the same 10 Commandments, or are they different?
Yeah, part, but probably there's probably more. I think what's more important for family and friends is just the presence. I think that there should be presence and communication at all times. So when I say with presence, that when we're together in a room with family and friends, that we should always try to be present to each other and not just be there and not even pay attention. So I think it's more of I would want presence, and I think because that's one of the things too that in the past, I guess, in our family, that's common, that we may be together but no one's really listening to each other. So for me, I think that that's one of the things that I feel is really important now, that we need to always be present to others, and just always the communication, that no matter what, just always communicate with family and friends, reaching out, checking in, staying connected.
Are you always present with your family and friends?
I have to admit that I wasn't before. Like, I think I'm just one of them that, we could all be in the same room, but we're all on the phone. I don't know, all kinds of daydreaming. But I think that I've really made a conscious effort now to change that, knowing that it's one of the things that I feel that's what's missing in my life. So yeah, I acknowledge that I have been that person before, but that's one of the things that I'm really working hard at now.
So what would be a step for you to have this be a revelation to your family and friends? Since you discovered it, what would be that step?
You mean how I would portray to them about the whole presence thing?
A lot about what you talk about was boundaries, and sometimes boundaries are about what you don't want, but sometimes boundaries are also about what you do want. So if you was to cultivate more of being present with your family and friends, what would be a step in the right direction?
Well, I think that maybe like an example would be like in our next, because usually whenever there's like like a gathering, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, then maybe it's usually at my home. So maybe what I would do is start with like, this time there's rules like no cell phones, no, even if it's like an hour or something. Like, in other words, everyone needs to be like something like that, where or we have like a game or whatever that engages everyone. That there's got to be more conscious effort to make that presence felt, that you're not just in a room together, but you're in a room actually connecting with each other and really talking to each other, and not just being there physically but not there emotionally.
And how would that land for your family and friends if you asked them?
Yeah, that's a totally different question. That would probably feel very, very weird to them. But it might probably feel weird, but it's worth trying. Yeah, it's probably weird, but it's worth trying.
So besides presence with them, what's another ask that you have?
Is that so back to boundaries is, I think, like, to respect my own, in the same token that I want presence. And I think this goes hand in hand, because in the same way that there's presence at the times that we're together, on the other hand, on the times that we're not together, when I'm alone, and a lot of times I prefer being alone too, being independent. So I'd like, on those times that I'm alone, I want my own, the boundaries where if I need to do things on my own, that I shouldn't also be constantly bothered and not be allowed to have my own private time, which I normally need those. And whenever I feel like someone's calling me or texting me or wanting to get together, that I feel obliged to do it. But that for them to understand that just because I say no to a certain thing doesn't mean I don't care about them, but it's because I also need that time for myself, and that I can't, it doesn't mean that, in other words, that I should be allowed to say no when I don't want to get together or talk to someone, or just, to have that boundary and to be respected for what I want to happen for myself in that specific time frame.
So how could you hold yourself accountable to that need that you have?
Well, actually, I am starting to do that now too, because it used to be that whenever somebody needed me for something, I always agreed, or I always, even though I didn't want to do it. But I think now I'm conscious about now too, that and I feel okay to say no, and I try to not feel guilty anymore. So I think that now I am definitely working towards that. And I've made improvements in terms of letting them know that I can't be, because I used to be like everybody always runs for me for things, but I think they now understand that I'm busy with other things with my business, that I can't, and a lot of them don't even try to approach me anymore, knowing that I've kind of started to create that boundary.
You spoke earlier about, with your family, getting them together and mentioning the word presence and not really knowing how they're going to respond to it. How would you, what would you say to them to make sure that the boundary for your needs are still kept intact without hurting their feelings?
Well, actually, I don't need to say that, but maybe what I could do is, instead of saying it in like a formal manner about boundaries, right? But make it as a playful thing that, say it in a way, in a loving way that, okay, this specific holiday, let's say, for instance, this actually, I think what's coming up is my sister's birthday. So I could say, right, on my sister's birthday, I have an interesting activity that I'd like all of us to do on her birthday, and then present it that way, and that we're not explaining about what I'm trying to do, but present this as an activity that I felt it was interesting for all of us to do together.
And how would that go? Like, what would be the response?
I think that it would be taken positively. I hope, but yeah.
So what if obstacles come in your way regarding this newfound way of being? How would you handle that?
Just like what I do with everything, right? I'm always gentle and gentle with myself and patient with myself, knowing that things don't happen overnight. It may take a while, but so long as I know that I'm working towards it, there's nothing to be upset about. So long as I know that I'm progressing towards what I want to do and I'm taking a step towards it, I'm always gentle with myself when it comes to those kind of things.
Tina, I'm curious, when I say the word boundary or having distinct needs and wants, does that resonate anywhere in your body?
In my gut.
In your gut?
My gut. Yeah.
Can you feel into it? Is there anything happening there?
I think, and the gut is where our intuition is, right? I relate it to the intuition. And I think part of this whole realization thing about the boundaries is, again, as I've said, I've never been really clear on what my boundaries are, because I never knew what they were. So I think that now when you ask about where I felt it, because I think that it just occurred to me now that to answer my question about not knowing my boundaries, I think that if I just trust my intuition, that it will tell me what those boundaries are. Like, my intuition will always tell me when my boundaries are being violated or not, and I should listen to it.
And follow me on this. If you listen to it, what's it's telling you? What would it say to you?
What would my intuition be telling me?
Yeah, regarding boundaries.
Is that I know what it is, even though I'm telling you now that I don't know what it is. I think that I always know when it happens, but I try to deny it. That maybe that's part of my problem. That I know when something is violated, but then maybe because I've never known how to address it, that I deny that it's a boundary. And that's really what I need to change, to be, to accept that what the boundaries are, and not camouflage it, and not deny it, but see that it's there, acknowledge it, and not be afraid to do what I need to do when I can feel that those boundaries are violated. And I think because that's my struggle, that I always feel guilty because I feel that yeah, because I don't know what the boundaries are, so I feel guilty if I need to do something about it. But I think that that's what my intuition is trying to tell me, that, you know, I'll know when something is not right, and that I should not sit there and let those boundaries be crossed without me doing anything about it.
And what would, in a perfect world, what would that intuition, boundaries, everything we talked about today, where's the promised land for that?
The promised land for that would be, I guess, a woman who is empowered to always do what she knows is best for herself without being afraid of what the repercussions are.
Not being afraid with what the repercussions are.
Yep. To be an empowered woman. Because I think, like, a lot of times I'm afraid to do certain things that I feel, you know, would make somebody upset. It stops me from doing things that I'm supposed to do because I don't want to upset someone. But in reality, I think that it's only me thinking that it will make someone upset. But it may not really make someone upset, but it's me making those assumptions. But meanwhile, I'm not honoring myself by thinking of the other person more than I'm thinking about myself. Yeah. And what it's doing to me. Yeah.
And that empowered woman in all her glory, what would she say?
Well done, Tina.
Well done, Tina.
Finally. Well done, Tina. Finally.
Yeah.
Finally, you have become the woman that you are supposed to be.
And is she far away in the distance? Can you see her? Can you touch her?
I think so. Yeah. I think so.
What would need to happen for you to embrace her?
I guess to just continue walking confidently towards it, to just really have that full empowerment, to really to just be confident that she's in the right path, and that I'm not hurting people by doing what I need to do for myself.
So you're on the right path, not hurting people. Wow. All right. Well, thank you so much. Is this a good place for us to end our session? Do you feel complete?
Sure. Yeah.
Great.
It was very good. Very. Yeah. I never really sat down to think about it, but yeah.
Yeah. So this is a good place to sort of transition into the interview portion. So tell my audience more about Tina Marie Romero, what you do, who you serve, what your mission is in life.
All right, so I own a non-medical home care agency here in New Jersey, Synergy Home Care in North Central New Jersey. So basically, I hire, I have about 100 caregivers, certified home health aides, and we go to people's homes to provide care for seniors or anyone, not just seniors, anyone needing care at home. So so the whole premise of that non-home care business, that I do believe that given a choice, my parents, your parents, our seniors would prefer to stay at home rather than in a facility. That's the whole premise of a non-medical home care agency, because that I want them, that they want to be at home, and that's what I'm here for, to keep them safely at home by providing them the care that they need at home.
I love a good origin story. How did you get into this business?
Actually, it's very interesting that I was working in IT at a computer, at the headquarters of a computer, not a computer, an insurance company, headquarters of insurance, but I was in IT. And I was taking my master's, my MBA, and an MA in diplomacy in international relations. After I graduated, that was my goal. I wanted to have my own business. So in trying to figure out what business I wanted to have, I worked with a franchise matchmaker. And that was his job, to find out what best suits my needs and my and partner and sync it up with my own qualities. And this is one, he recommended three businesses for me, and this is one of them. So it was, and it was a lengthy process because he tried to figure out what was best based on my goals and my strengths, what would best fit. And this is the one that resonated the most with me, and that's how I ended up doing it. I didn't even know about it before he introduced it to me, but that's how it came about.
How has your work and what you do been impacted by COVID?
Oh, very much. Very difficult. The past 2 years has been hard for me because, again, as I've said, I sent caregivers to people's homes. So when COVID happened, we lost 90% of our business because the clients stopped care, right? Because they didn't want anybody in their homes. So the clients stopped care, and at the same time, no caregivers wanted to work. So we lost a lot of business the first the beginning part, but the seniors always need care. So eventually it got a little bit better, but it still has because there's a big, just like any other industry right now in the U.S., there's a big shortage of caregivers in this country. So that is a really big struggle right now with the shortage of caregivers.
What have you seen in the needs of seniors that are not being addressed right now?
You mean on a national level, just any level? Yeah, okay. I could answer it any way I want. Yeah. Well, definitely, it's our seniors. It's the companionship and communication. Especially during COVID, right? A lot of our seniors are left out in the cold by themselves, especially those who don't have family with them, right? And that's most of the seniors that we serve. Seniors who live at home because their children are all, on their own, so they live on their own. And so a lot of the seniors, they don't really have anyone. Their families are far away, and it's just really, during COVID, more than any other group, it has really made them, the loneliness epidemic for the seniors has really gone through the roof as well, because if it has eliminated people visiting them, so it has really put them more in a very solitary, they're isolated from the world. Yeah. And so that's why, with what we do, a lot of times the caregivers that we send, those are the only contacts that they have from the outside world. And when these people are taken away from them, they could be on their own for days and not interacting with other people. So I think that loneliness is a really tragic thing for seniors right now.
I can only speak to my own experience. I grew up in an Asian household. I'm Indian, and kids live with their parents. It's just what happens. But not in the U.S. Yeah.
Not in the U.S. Yeah.
So what would be, some wish lists for you in this industry, or in what you've seen that you wish things would just sort of change or things would be transformed?
Well, I talked earlier about the shortage of caregivers in this country, right? And actually, one of the things that I really felt was my mission last year when I actually bought out my business partner last year during the height of COVID, despite the difficulty. And the reason I did that was because I found what I felt was my mission, and that was I felt that I needed to bring caregivers here from the Philippines. Because of the shortage, it addresses that problem, and also because of the fact that I know for a fact that Filipinos have the heart to really care. Around the world, Filipinos are known globally to be very good caregivers, and I think that's the one thing that's badly needed here, because other than the shortage, right, the quality of the caregivers here is unfortunately not so good. It's just people. The certification for home health aides here only require a 3-week course, 3 weeks. In the Philippines, they require at least 8 months to do a certification for caregivers, And 3 months of that is towards value formation. And that's something that's not taught in this country. So I just really feel that it's my desire for our seniors to feel compassionate care in the hands of Filipinos at the end of their lives, because I think that will make a big difference to their lives. Just to have to be cared for by people who truly care for them and has the heart, have compassionate hearts.
So what's the overall vision for this business for you?
Yeah, that's at the end. That's my over. Well, I do. That's a longer process, though, a long-term process to have that. What do you call it? That new. It involves a change in immigration to get those caregivers in. But other than that, I really just want to provide compassionate care where seniors feel they're being cared for by an extended family, not just like a company or an agency that don't care about them. And that's really what I try to instill to our caregivers and to my staff here, that at the end of the day, we are in the business of helping people, and that I'm always I look at each client as if it was family, and that's how I would want each client to be treated and cared for.
I read an article a few months ago where someone did a research study. I think they evaluated or surveyed, I think it was like 100 patients literally in the hospital, near death, dying. And they basically asked them, do you regret anything? And if you did, what was it? And none of them mentioned their job. None of them mentioned their home. Everyone just mentioned about, connection. And I was just kind of curious, with the people that you serve, the community that you serve, what are they really looking for or wanting?
You mean like with my clientele, right?
Yeah.
With my clientele. The same, just like what you said, it is connection. It is, even with the care, and a lot of times the seniors are actually most seniors actually don't, or almost every senior think they don't need anyone to care for them. They always need to feel they're independent and that they could care for themselves. But I think at the end of the day, other than helping them out with their daily living, with the things that they need to do that they can no longer do, I think that at the end of the day, they need to know that someone is there who truly cares for them and who listens to them and understands them, sees them as human beings, and not just like a body that needs to be given their food and medicine. It's really, at the end of the day, it's knowing that somebody is there and sees them for who they are, who takes the time to talk to them, looks them in the eye, and has a conversation with them, to ask them about their childhood, because the seniors have the most amazing and interesting stories. And I think that's people sometimes just don't take the time to talk to them and listen to what they have to say and their wisdom. So I think it's, in the end, it's about knowing that someone is there to listen to them and really see them as who they are.
I love that. That's great. So where can my audience find out more about you, your business, on the internet?
Well, I'm at synergyhomecare.com. That's the website of the, and I'm located in central New Jersey. So the way, it's a franchise, so they just put the zip code in there for where they would need care. That, and then on LinkedIn, I'm Tina Romero on LinkedIn.
Wonderful, Tina. Well, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate this conversation. It was just so enriching.
Thank you so much, too, I really enjoyed this, Savio. Thank you, and thank you for the coaching.
Sure.
Thank you.
I really hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast episode of The Human Resolve. If you feel that others may enjoy this episode as well, please share socially at The Human Resolve. You can also visit my website, thehumanresolve.com, where I offer one-on-one coaching sessions, a subscription to my weekly newsletter, where I probe into the secrets from living smarter to feeding your 3 brains, and my author website, isurvivedcancer.co, where you can purchase my #1 best-selling book, I Survived Cancer and Here's How I Did It. 35 cancer survivors share their journey, and view the book trailer including excerpts from the book. If you could also help me out and give me a review and rating on this podcast platform, because I do care what you have to say, I would really appreciate it. Now, get out there, my friends, and get busy living.